Jonathan Lee Riches Investigates. I am in New York City, Broadway, 165th Street. Right there, Malcolm X was assassinated. You know Malcolm X? I cover true crime, cover crime cases throughout the country. Malcolm X was assassinated right here, 1965. Let me spin the camera around. Right here. Inside here, it's called the Audubon. 1965. Assassinated right here. In this building here. Let me show you some information about the Malcolm X assassination that occurred right here. Malcolm X assassinated during speech in Manhattan. On February 21st, 1965, Malcolm X, a religious and civil rights leader, was assassinated during a speech at the Audubon Ballroom in Manhattan. Malcolm X was just 39 years old and left behind his wife Betty Shabazz and 6 young daughters, including twins born after his death. Born Malcolm Little, and later known as Malik El-Shabazz, Malcolm X rose to the national stage as a leading black voice in the 1950s and 60s. After being appointed a minister and spokesman for the Nation of Islam, Malcolm X brought tens of thousands of new members to the religious organization in the mid-1900s. His powerful oration and charisma drew large crowds and supporters, but his criticism of white society and calls for a black national movement drew controversy and opponents. Fearing his power and influence as a black leader, the FBI followed Malcolm X throughout his public life. After a falling out with the Nation of Islam leader Elijah Muhammad, Malcolm X left and started his own movement. As his popularity grew, so did the threats of his life. Just a week before Malcolm X spoke in Manhattan, he and his wife, along with their 4 daughters, were forced to abandon their home in the middle of the night after it was firebombed. After Malcolm X's assassination, thousands of people traveled to Unity Funeral Home in Harlem to view his body and to pay their respect. Malcolm X was buried on February 27th during a funeral attended by family, friends, and civil rights leaders, including John Lewis. Now check this out. The men exonerated in the Malcolm X killing will receive $36 million. This combination photo shows Muhammad Aziz, a suspect in the slaying of Malcolm X, after his arrest in New York on February 26, 1965. This is Aziz on the right after his conviction in the killing of Malcolm X was vacated on November 18th, 2021. The city of New York is settling lawsuits filed on behalf of 2 men who were exonerated last year for the 1965 assassination of Malcolm X, agreeing to pay $26 million for the wrongful convictions which led to both men spending decades behind bars. The state of New York will pay an additional $10 million. David Shanies, an attorney representing the men, confirmed the settlements on Sunday. Muhammad Aziz and Khalil Islam and their families suffered because of their unjust convictions for more than 50 years. The city recognized the grave injustices done here, and I commend the sincerity and speed with which the Comptroller's Office and the Corporation Council moved to resolve the lawsuits. Shaney said the settlement sent a message that police and prosecutorial misconduct caused tremendous damage, and we must remain vigilant to identify and correct injustices. Last year, this was in 2021, I believe, a Manhattan judge dismissed the convictions of Aziz, now 84, in Islam, who died in 2009 after prosecutors said new evidence of witness intimidation and suppression of exculpatory evidence had undermined the case against the men. Then District Attorney Cyrus Vance apologized for law enforcement's serious, unacceptable violations of laws and public trust. The New York City Law Department, through a spokesman, said Sunday it stands by Vance's opinion that the men were wrongfully convicted and the financial agreement brings some measure of justice to individuals who spent decades in prison and bore the stigma of being falsely accused of murdering an iconic figure. Aziz and Islam, who maintained their innocence from the start in the 1965 killing at Upper Manhattan's Audubon Ballroom, were paroled in the 1980s. So, these two men were convicted. Two men, this one here, Muhammad Aziz, and another gentleman, were convicted, spent decades in prison, and now are getting $36 million, their families. What do you think? This location right here. What's your thoughts? JLR, boots on the ground, New York City. New York City. Malcolm X. What's your thoughts on Malcolm X? I'm out in the field. We will talk soon. Subscribe to my channel, like, and hit the notification button. I cover true crime. We'll talk soon.